Thank you, everyone. Welcome to this forum for the Beverly Hills Village Council election. Today is September 23rd, 2024. This forum will be featuring the 4 candidates, actually now 5 candidates, who have filed for the Beverly Hills Council and 1 running for completion of a term. So you will vote for 3 for a 6-year term. Sponsor of this forum is the League of Women Voters, Oakland area. I am Rosemerry Allen, a member of the League of Women Voters, Oakland area. I am not a resident of this district. The League of Women Voters is a trusted national, nonpartisan political organization. Our members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues that keep our communities strong. As a League of Women Voters member, I have the opportunity to contribute in a leadership role, such as this one. That has great impact on local, state, and even national issues. If you are interested in learning about how you can make a similar impact, I would encourage you to visit our website at lwvoa.org. The League of Women Voters does not endorse any candidate or political party. Views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, and the sponsors take no responsibility. The format for this forum has been established by the League of Women Voters. We ask that the audience remain silent during the forum. Please turn off all cell phones and any other electronic devices, and now is a good time to do that. We ask that candidates answer the questions with their views only and not interrupt another candidate. The questions are asked to all candidates and do not single out any one candidate. All candidates will be answering questions submitted by the audience and screened for duplication and appropriateness by Kathleen McNallis and Maxine Munshine. Pages Mike Allen and Jonathan Citron will be circulating with paper and pencils for your questions. Please turn your questions into the pages. The format is as follows. All candidates will be given 1 minute for opening statements in alphabetical order. Closing statements will be 1 minute in reverse order. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question in rotation unless extended by the moderator. All candidates will be allowed equal time to answer questions. Our timer is Tina Burry. The candidates are Andrew Drummond, Bill Eisenman, Tracy Keckskemeti, Tim Mercer, and Ryan O'Gorman. We will begin the 1-minute opening statements with Andrew Drummond, Mr. Drummond, followed by Mr. Eisenman, followed by Ms. Keckskemeti, then Mr. Mercer, and Mr. O'Gorman. So we will now start those opening statements right now with Mr. Andrew Drummond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Allen. Appreciate the introduction. My name is Andrew Drummond. I'm currently on Village Council. I am completing a term that was vacated by Mike White last year, running to complete that term. So the term would be another 2 years from Election Day. Lived in the village for about 12 years, served on the Planning Commission for about 8 years prior to going to council, and on zoning prior to planning. Have 3 children in this community. My wife teaches kindergarten at Beverly Elementary. We've been very deep-rooted in the community since we moved here and look forward to continuing to serve the people of Beverly Hills and this community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Eisenman.
Very good. Thank you for your interest in my candidacy. My wife and I have resided in Beverly Hills for 22 years, and we're very happy to have raised our now adult son here. I've brought the professional portion of my career to a close after years of experience in engineering, sales, program management, and general management across a number of industries in businesses of a variety of sizes, including ownership of a small business. All of this has given me a keen sense of the needs for technical expertise, creative problem solving, and to focus on client satisfaction. Now I've turned my activities to leverage these skills to give back to the community. I am a committed conservation volunteer and do a considerable amount of field work in areas such as wildlife population monitoring, stream health monitoring, habitat improvement, and restoration. I work as an education program leader at MSU's Tollgate Farm in Novi, and where I engage learners of all ages. I would like to serve the residents of the village on council by bringing these skills and experiences to bear, and by being a reasonable voice that drives solutions to issues and progress for the community overall.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenman. Ms. Tracy Keckskemeti.
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
Thank
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tracy Keckskemeti. I'm running for re-election to a second term on Village Council. My husband and I were first attracted to the village after a visit to Beverly Park. We fell in love with the park and the neighborhoods, and we were impressed with the school district. So about 12 years ago, we bought a house in East Beverly, and those little kids that we visited the park with are now at Groves and Berkshire, much bigger than they were originally. But I generally subscribe to a philosophy of service. Okay? I believe that each of us has a responsibility to contribute to our community and our society when and where we can. In my day job, I work for the State Environmental Agency, running environmental protection programs. In my spare time, I have been involved in Girl Scouts, sports boosters, community theater, PTA. I take the job of being on council very seriously, and I try to be thoughtful about the issues facing our community. Serving on council has been a great way to engage with our wonderful village, and I appreciate the opportunity to hear from all of you and answer your questions tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Mercer.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for providing this forum. It's so important, I think, for our community. It's great to see all the people here tonight. I know a lot of you, so that's great. My name is Tim Mercer. I am a village resident for 22 years. The village is a great place to raise a family. I will say that. I think probably most of us agree. I hope that everyone does agree. My wife, Monica, and I have raised our 3 children here. All 3 attended Beverly Elementary, Berkshire Middle School, Groves High School, and graduated from Groves, and all have moved on either to college or to a career, which is great for us. I'm a past council member. I'm also a past council president. I was on the council from 2010 to 2014, and I was president from 2013 to 2014. I took a break to really be with my kids when they were in high school, and I also promised them I wouldn't be on council while they were in high school. So I did that. I have some goals that I would like to get into and hope to get into that more in this forum, but I appreciate your time and for being here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Gorman.
Hi, Ryan O'Gorman. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. This is the 3rd event I've been to with the League of Women Voters, and I think you guys do a fantastic job. I'd also like to thank everybody who came out. It's great to see an audience here. I can say we don't always get a full house, so I appreciate that. Those who don't know me, I've been here 13 years in the village, been on the village council for the last 4 years. When I was elected last time, I was the young guy, had somebody in each level of school, college through elementary. With my 4 kids, married to my wife Amanda. We love the community. I've always been kind of a volunteer and service person in the schools, sports, things like that. This was a natural evolution. Had served on a school board in the past, and I thought that with this community, this is a great opportunity to be able to give of myself and contribute to the community. I've worked at Ford for 25 years, and I've worked as an engineer half of that and business strategy development after that, which has served me well to balance between technical as well as business as fulfilling this role, and hope to be able to continue that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opening statements, and I too am very excited to see so many out today. This is very important work that we are doing. So now we will begin the question segment of our forum. Most questions will have 1 minute, a 1-minute time limit. And we will begin with you, Mr. Eisenman. And the question is, what unique qualifications will you bring to help VBH be the best it can be? And please give examples of leadership.
Well, I think that as a conservationist, I have done considerable field work and have a tremendous understanding of the effects that our ecosystems have on our individual lives, as well as the livability of our community. So enhancing those factors in our natural habitats is a critical priority for me. And I believe I bring expertise from that bulk of field work that I've done, to be able to assist the community in making sure that we're preserving our natural spaces, even those ones that, the little corners of our yards that are important to us.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Keckskemeti. Did you need me to repeat it?
No, I'm okay. Thank you,
Okay.
Mrs. Allen. So not dissimilar from Bill, I have a background in environmental protection, environmental science. I spend my day in environmental protection, but underlying that is public service, right? And so my experiences in how state governments work, how state government interacts with local government, and I have a lot of background in infrastructure specifically, right? So stormwater management, water quality management, wastewater, drinking water, those sorts of things. And so some of the infrastructure projects that face the village, I have some specific technical expertise in. But the other piece, I think, of qualification we need to think about is character, right? And so I try to approach this job very thoughtfully. I try to listen to folks. I believe that a range of experiences and perspectives is important. That's why we're a council. That's why we're not one person, right? And so my goal here is to listen to people and represent our community the best way I can and try to be thoughtful in the way I do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer. Same question.
Yes, so I bring past experience back to the council, and with that, I've had a lot of success in the first term when I was on council, some things we did for the village. For moving forward, I want to make sure that we're maintaining and improving our infrastructure, which includes our roads, our bridges, our sidewalks, water mains, sewer lines. I want to maintain and improve the village parks and the green spaces in the village, not just necessarily Beverly Park, other areas that we have in the village that are utilized by the village residents and important to the residents. Also, I plan to be fiscally responsible. I take this job very seriously. I think everyone probably up here does also, but I will make sure that we prioritize our spend items, that we're competitively bidding the items that need to be competitively bid, and I'll look for ways to reduce spending and levy only the mills that we need in order to provide for the village, and everything else we give back to the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Gorman.
Gorman, yep. Thank you. So I would say there's a few traits that are relatively unique to me. One is being an engineer, kind of systematically problem-solving things is natural to me. It's something I did for years in my career. Similar, I've worked in business for a long time, particularly in strategy. So my business acumen, evaluating capital investments, where we should spend money, has been valuable while I've served on the council today. And then I think there's an aspect, Ms. Keckskemeti touched on it a bit, but human-centric. So a lot of the work I've done in the last several years has been human-centric, understanding the needs of people in a community, needs of people for product in particular for my work, but here understanding the balance of the population of our village. It's a very diverse place, both geographically as far as properties as well as the people who live here. So trying to maintain a balance to me is a relatively important thing, and I think sometimes that's hard to do.
Thank you. Mr. Drummond.
Similar to many of the panelists here, I'm also an engineer. Work for the largest construction management company in the country, and really my experiences there tie into to everything here at the village. So I manage very, large construction budgets, and anyone who's ever done a home renovation knows that the budget never matches the wants. And then there's always other people involved, whether it's your family or others that want a whole bunch of other things, right? So just trying to align everyone's expectations within our budgets and make sure that everything is done correctly and bring that same kind of approach here to the village.
Thank you so much. Our next question, we'll start with you, Ms. Keckskemeti. And the question is, what is something about our village that you love? And what is something about our village you'd love to change?
That's a good question. So I like the sense of community here, right? I did not grow up in this village. I grew up in Metro Detroit, but in a really large suburb. And outside of your immediate neighbors, you didn't know a whole lot of people. I look in this room, I know most of the people in this room, right? And I've been here 12 years, not 30 years, right? So the community here, I think, is our strongest attribute, right? Was the second part of that, Ms. Allen, something I'd like to change or address?
What's something about our village that you would love to change?
Oh, something I would love to change. Primarily the running of red lights at Southfield and Beverly. No, we have tremendous community services, right? We have good public services, but we need to maintain those, right? I mean, we need to invest in our water and sewer infrastructure specifically, right? I mean, those pipes in the ground are over 75 years old, right? There's a lot of work that we need to do. I'm not running on like a change campaign here, right? This is a great place, but we need to maintain it.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Mercer.
Thank you. Same, it's just a great place to live. We've obviously have our differences. We listen to those. People come to the village council meetings. They speak about those. We have conflict, but at the end of the day, everybody really does seem to get along pretty well. And I think that's a testament to the people who live in this village. And I really love that. It really is a great place to raise a family. I tell people that all the time. And I know there are a lot of people that would like to move to this village, and it's not the easiest place to find a house. And that's good for us, and that we maintain our sense of community, not keeping anyone out, but just because so many people want to live here. One of the things I guess I would say change, I don't know if it's so much change as it is to just make sure that we are maintaining the spaces that we have adequately for the residents. And by that, I mean, again, not just, say, our park, which Beverly Park, but also mainly our infrastructure, which is water mains and sewer lines. So those are some things I think we need to take a look at.
Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Gorman.
Thank you. So what is something I'd love to change, and what is something that I love about the village? My wife and I used to call Beverly Hills Village Pleasantville when we moved in. It's basically a small-town American movie set. You have parades, you have activities for kids, you have parks, kids riding bikes, walking to school. It's a fantastic place. You can't beat that. Wasn't even aware it existed previously because it's a small kind of diamond in the rough. It's not like Birmingham or another large city like Troy that everybody knows about. What would I love to change? Probably if I had a magic wand, it would be the infrastructure. We're at the age of expiry for a lot of our infrastructure, our roads, our sewers, everything underground, even things above ground. We have outages, and unfortunately, those things don't come with a magic wand. They take planning, they take time, and I think that we have a responsibility on council to start to budget for that and make sure that as we move into the future and those things do expire and need that work, we're there to do that. And we've started some of that already, but I would say it's just kind of on the cusp of getting that established. I'd like to continue that work.
Thank you, Mr. Drummond.
Yeah. What I really like about the community here is Beverly Hills is the sense of community. Neighbors are very welcoming to everyone else. Our community has a very unique feel about it when you drive through it, from the trees that are still everywhere, right? We didn't come in and just take down an entire forest and put in a planned subdivision. It's grown organically over the years, and it's really added a nice feel to it. And then something to change on it. I think we need more sidewalks here. We do have big patches that we're missing sidewalks on. It's not the greatest that kids can't walk from Groves up to Seaholm, those that participate in some of the United Sports. And I know current council and the upcoming council plans on trying to tie all those in, and that's one of the things I really want to make sure we get done in the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, we will start with you, Mr. Oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
It's quite all right.
Yes, okay. Do you have the question, or do I need to repeat it?
No,
Okay.
I understand it very clearly.
Okay, my
So-
apologies.
So I think the green spaces in the village and that tree cover that was alluded to, and the sense that that gives us is something that makes this a very endearing place to live and really gives us a sense of a village that maybe doesn't feel like it's situated where it's situated. One of the things that we tell people about the property that we live on is that we bought it instead of a property up north because it gives us an up north feeling just to be on our own deck and in our own yard. And I think that's just a great value that the village gives us. From a change standpoint, I spend a lot of time in the Rouge River, and the effects of our combined sewer are a challenge. If there was a magic wand, we might be able to change that, but I think the thing that's important to me is to be able to make those incremental improvements that help our residents deal with that historical fact.
Thank you so much. So now, our next question will be for you, Mr. Mercer. And that question is, next is an area senior center of 600 members. Will you continue to financially support Next? Do you support Next moving to a new facility?
Yes?
Okay.
Let me clarify that also. Yes, we were, when I was on the council, I served with some members of Next, and they did great things. They do great things. It's important. Obviously, the population is aging in general, not just in Beverly Hills, but throughout the United States. And we can see what kind of challenges that's put on to local communities. It's important that we have a place for our seniors to go. And I use the term senior loosely because anymore, and maybe it's because I'm approaching the magic number closer, but anymore, they do a lot. They're very active, and they stay active, they're healthier, and I think it just gives them a good place to get out and about. And as far as, I think they're kind of going to be forced to move, so I mean, if we're going to support them, we'll have to support that as well. I don't think there's any question about that.
All right, thank you. Mr. O'Gorman, same question.
Yes, thank you for the question. I think Next is an invaluable resource for our community. We do have a portion of the community that's over 50, me now included this year. I think that they offer great services, and I think the home that they have, as I understand, has been not the best for them, and they found a new location. So will we continue to financially support Next? The answer would be yes. As far as that move and what happens next, that's on paper and needs to be moved forward. So we'll see how that progresses. But I do believe that Next is a good resource for the community and a particular portion of the community that definitely needs those services. And I think I still have some time, and I'd just like to comment on when we were in COVID, running into people who were in that group and population. Next was a great asset. And it also helps people who have resource kind of constraints, whether temporarily or permanently, and I think that it's a valuable resource that we've been able to leverage and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drummond.
Yeah, I've supported Next through my experiences with them. On council, we've voted for several things in favor of Next that they have asked for from our community. I feel that they fill a very important void that currently exists. So they're an important organization to keep supporting. I support the future of their plans and their new facility. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenman.
Absolutely. Thank you. We have close family members who interact at Next and are greatly benefited by their programming and are very active in supporting their work. I think that demographics and the changes in our society are a critical issue, and being able to support those who move into the phase of life where Next's programming assists them is an important thing for us as a village to support. And likewise, given that I don't think they have any alternatives to stay where they are, being a part of the process and understanding the implications for the village here of what their new facility means will be a critical part of continuing to support them.
Thank you, Ms. Keckskemeti. Same question.
Sure. I don't think you're going to get any disagreement at this table about support of Next. I will say, though, I do not yet qualify for their services, but I was lucky when my son was little, he went to preschool at Midvale, which was co-located with Next, and so right when we moved to the community, I got some exposure to their programs, and I was really impressed. And I live on the east side of the village. It's a really diverse street, really diverse community in terms of demographics and needs. And what strikes me most is that we all want to be able to age in place, right? We all want to be, we've built our home here, we've built our community here. I want to stay in my house, right? And so the resources that that organization provides to our communities, not just in having a place to go and programming, but also in assistance on sidewalk clearing or home improvement or whatever it is, right? So they provide great services, and we'll, of course, always support them. And they need a permanent home, right? It's time to get them a permanent home. And if the YMCA is going to be that location, we're going to figure that out as a community.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Mr. O'Gorman. And that question is, what are the most significant issues facing the village, and how would you suggest addressing them?
Thanks for the question. I think infrastructure is probably our biggest challenge, mainly because the kind of underlying funding to get that done is something outside of our means. When we think about the sewers, the roads, we can maintain and we can update, but inevitably, we are a small community, and I think that's going to be critical. I think one of the other keys is making sure that our natural spaces, our parks, and our things that our community enjoys and participates in stay healthy. I think we do a pretty good job. I think there's always opportunity to improve. There's been some initiatives recently to get some future strategy looking on how we take care of those. And then I think we have some challenges just financially, making sure as a small community we balance the balance statement for the village. I think we do a pretty good job today with things like our water bill that I'm assuming will come up tonight. Is one of those things that's a bit of a challenge, and it's a reality that we face and have to take on. So I think financially we've been healthy and we'll probably continue to do so, but we have to do that within reasonable means for the residents of the village in an affordable way.
Thank you. Mr. Drummond, same question.
Yeah, I agree. Our infrastructure is aging here, so sewer lines, water lines. Current council president, John George, always tells a story when our previous village manager, Chris Wilson, first came in. He was told that the water lines over on Pierce, which we're currently working on starting the replacement of those, was the biggest ticking time bomb we had from an infrastructure standpoint, and that he had tried to get those taken care of during his term and was not able to. So I'm very excited that we are now moving forward to get those taken care of. We have plans to continue that and complete that project here over the next couple of years. The other big issue, and I should say it's been a non-issue because we have focused on it over the years, and I will continue to focus on it, is our public safety department. The people out there in the police cars and our fire trucks do an outstanding job of keeping everyone here in the village safe, and we'll continue to support them fully.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenman.
Everybody good?
Yes.
I think that, the cornerstone of operating any municipality is making certain that it's fiscally responsible. And here in our village, I think there have been examples over the last couple of years of how we can do a much better job of leveraging outside funding to support activities that happen here in the village to the benefit of the villagers and the surrounding communities. So being able to be efficient in the way that we spend residents' money is a critical issue. That, of course, incorporates being efficient in the way that we fund infrastructure projects and making sure that we move the infrastructure to where we're all comfortable with it. And I couldn't sit here as a conservationist and someone who spends a considerable amount of time in the field without expressing the need to use those green spaces that we have and protect the natural areas that surround us.
Thank you, Ms. Keckskemeti.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. I'm not going to, I agree with everything we've already heard. And, you know, what I think that shows is as a municipality, especially as a small municipality, we have to do a lot of different things all at the same time, right? We have a small staff. We, you know, we have volunteer boards doing a lot of heavy lifting in this community. And so I'll second everything I heard, but I will add one thing to the list. And this is maybe a short, well, I hope it's a short-term issue, but we need a new village manager. Okay. So this needs to be the top priority of our next council, right? Our village manager resigned and left in August. He was with us for a couple of years, replacing Mr. Wilson, who's referenced to it, who left a couple of years ago. And we need a professional administrator in the office here running the ship, right? Because we lose momentum when we lose people, right? And so we have to invest in our people. We have to keep our people. We have to keep our leadership, right? So this has to be a good place to live, but also a good place to work.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer.
Thank you. We need a plan. We have some plans. We need more detailed plans if we're going to carry out improving all the items that we need to improve. We do. I agree. We all agree that we have aging infrastructure, all of our infrastructure. That's not necessarily specific to this community, but any community. But we have to have a plan. And that's one of the things I'd like to see us do, get a plan for each of those items in that infrastructure category. Also, if you haven't seen it, I think that the council's done a great job with going forward with the plan for Beverly Park, the 2050 plan. It's great. It's great to see there's at least a plan there. We might not agree with everything that's on there. We might not get everything that's on there. But at the same time, unless you have a plan, you can't execute. And that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to doing as a council member.
Thank you. Our next question will start with you, Mr. Drummond. And that question is, what are your views about speed bumps being installed on some of the double-block neighborhood blocks?
I have a close personal friend that lives, their driveway is probably 10 feet away from one of the test speed humps over in the West Beverly neighborhood. They have 2 children. The people across from them have 2 children. The people across from them have a couple children. And the 3 groups of kids often play right there in the corner. From talking to them, the speed hump has completely changed it. They're no longer paranoid about cars coming through there at 30, 40 miles an hour. It's been a big help there. So I think based on that test site, it's proven that it's an effective way to reduce the speed in those areas. And I think we do need to be selective on where we put them. I'm not saying we put speed humps on every street and every block. Otherwise, I'm going to open up a new Midas muffler here in the village to replace all those shocks. But it's important that we look at putting them in the right spot and using them for the right purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenman.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we live in a society where driving behavior across the population isn't necessarily what we would all desire it to be. So installing those features that help us ensure the safety of the children in our neighborhoods and of the pedestrians and dog walkers and folks walking to work or school is an important factor. So where it's appropriate, I think it's a great tool to try to manage behavior.
Thank you, Ms. Keckskemeti.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Allen.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that it was a good move to do a pilot first, right? I know people had questions, okay, how's this going to work in the winter, and how is it going to affect, me getting here and there? But the truth is, we need to do quite a bit in this village, and I mean, in all communities, right, to calm traffic, right? We see it at our intersections, we see it in our neighborhoods. Anytime there's a straightaway, I mean, we hear from folks that live on Riverside, but the driving there, we hear from folks that live on Evergreen, right? It's supposed to be a scenic, slow road, and it is quite fast, the pace people move. So in addition to the speed bumps, again, where appropriate, I think we need to do some other things too, right? We need to do some increased patrol. Do we need some change in signaling or some other devices? But I think traffic calming overall is a thing that we need to spend some time on in this community.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer.
Yes, I think it's a multi-pronged approach. I don't think speed bumps or speed humps or speed tables, whatever we are going to install or whatever we're going to call them, are necessarily the end-all be-all of taking care of this issue. I think it's great that they did the study. I think it's going to be good in certain places if it works out. I think that's a good thing. But also, as was alluded to, I think we need to also make sure we have the right patrols in the right spots. Our public safety is, I think, top-notch. I think they're one of the best public safety departments around, and that didn't happen just by accident. I'm sure that they're more than willing to help out, especially if you were to call, if you see somebody in your village coming down your street every day at, say, 7:15 in the morning, if you were to call and talk to Chief Taranjo and say, hey, could we have a patrol out here? It would get taken care of. So I think it's not just on the village to solve all those problems, but also some of the residents, if they see that, to contact public safety.
Thank you so much, Mr. O'Gorman.
Thanks for the question. I think this is near and dear to everybody's mind, especially those who have elementary school kids who walk to school and cross our roads. I've had a radar gun in my front yard, measured somebody on Beverly Road going 60 before. I live on Beverly Road. We've also talked about the issue at Southfield where people run red lights. So there's an ongoing problem. I have been part of the traffic calming subcommittee in the past, and I think if you've noticed the speed signs that went up, those were a great ad where they kind of flash to people that they're speeding. That has an impact. We did do a lot of research to understand what were the different effective means. One is speed humps, and what I'll tell you is people who don't like speed humps generally are speeding. So I think it's an effective method. We haven't really completed the pilot yet. I've heard great feedback from residents, but I'm waiting to kind of see study to show that they're effective. If they're not effective, we'll have to look at alternative means. If they are effective, then it's something that we would consider deployment in the right locations. Obviously, placement is critical, but I think they are a potential doing the research we had done. We're not going to be putting boulevards in, which is another great one, but that probably won't happen. So thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for you, Mr. Eisenman, and the question is, do you consider the current format of council meetings as adequate? Is it appropriate to vote on issues before receiving public comment on the issue?
I'm trying to think back through the council activities over the last year, and my recollection tells me that in those cases where there was a dearth of public input on particular issues, the existing council was pretty good about tabling those issues to assess what public feelings were. And boy, there's really quite a number of those that come to mind. So from a format standpoint, I'm not inclined to say that today's format is inappropriate, but I think that being thoughtful and making sure that we as reasonable voices on the council make sure that we have adequate input from the public is something that we as individuals have to discipline ourselves to do.
Thank you. Ms. Keckskemeti, did you need me to repeat it?
No, I'm
Okay.
good, thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, I think that's a fair question. I think, we come in, we inherit an agenda, it says things go in this order, you do this kind of comment in the beginning, this kind of comment at the end. But I think that's a very fair question. I would echo what Bill said, though. I have seen, in many instances, where something is controversial or kind of a big ticket item, right? First of all, we have, certain sorts of things that require a public hearing, right? And so the public hearing piece is built in. Many subjects that are kind of big ticket or controversial span the course of multiple meetings, right? And, let's remember our agendas are public notice, the packet goes out, people can review it before they come in. I'm often contacted by residents about issues on the agenda, so there are ways to hear, but I would be absolutely open to another format where we say, okay, we could do public comment by item, or we could do a public comment on the business agenda. Obviously, we need to keep our meetings moving, but I think that's a fair point.
Thank you. Mr. Mercer?
Yes. I think that for any item that's on the business agenda for the council, the public should be allowed to comment. And that means taking those public comments as they come up on the agenda item. You can have a forum or a public comment at the beginning, they have public comment at the end, but when it comes to the actual items, there are things that are presented that come up during that item in the new business agenda where somebody might have a comment or come up with something they didn't know about because they are in the audience and they are here, or they are on Zoom. That should absolutely be happening, and I would support that when I'm elected to the council. So also, I would really like to see a lot more community involvement. It's great to see everybody here tonight. I know that that's not always the case for council meetings. The more community involvement we have, the more voice we have, the better job we will do at managing the village. So that's what I encourage. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. O'Gorman?
Yes, thank you. So it's a great question. I think one of the things is just tradition. A lot of meetings are run that way. I think one thing that I would suggest as maybe two alternatives, and changing tradition is not something I'm against, by the way, but what I would suggest is the cadence of typical meetings in the public sphere generally work on a discussion, decision, kind of bi-weekly cadence. So you discuss items one round, and then you decide on them the next. So I think some items have more timeliness to them, and we don't have that flexibility. So that would be one option that I would suggest pursuing. The other one that I've requested that has not been successful yet is publishing materials earlier. Again, some of that just comes down to, we do have a kind of publication by law where it has to go out to the public, and that has a date. But trying to flex some of that so we can get information to the community so they can communicate with us. I generally try, I'm not perfect, but I generally try to respond to most people who've communicated to me with an issue or concern. So I'd encourage people to reach out to their council members, because that's probably your best method rather than waiting till a meeting to speak up, to provide feedback.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Drummond?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And coming from planning, on the Planning Commission side, we do have public comments on each item as we address them, right? Case gets read in, we have public comments, then we discuss it as a panel. I think that would be helpful at our council meetings also. So fully support changes there on it. From what I've seen in my time, again, on the other boards and commissions, council's always been run in the current format that it's in right now, from my experience and what I've seen. So I think it got taken over as tradition, and if there's a way to improve it, then I'm all ears for it.
Thank you. Our next question will start with you, Ms. Keckskemeti, and this response can be up to 2 minutes. And the question is, regardless of how the current court cases are decided, would you support placing the issue of backyard chickens on the ballot?
So that's a big question in our community right now, and I presume that it doesn't require a lot of background for the folks here, because if you're here, you're paying attention, you're aware of the issue. I'm not against the idea of a ballot initiative on that, but what I worry about is that and this happens a lot in communities and at different levels of government, I worry that we've lost our ability to have a rational conversation about the issue. Okay? You know, I've read this ordinance over and over and over. You know, people have asked me, what do you think of this? And what do you think is going to happen? I said, well, it's in the hands of the court, right? And frankly, our ordinance needs a plain language rewrite from top to bottom. Not just the animal issue, but the water issue, all of the code, right? What kind of plants can you have? How are you getting cited on this? I mean, the thing is a bit out of date. So the short answer, no, I'm not opposed to a ballot initiative, but I will say it is the job of council to do the hard work of the community, right? I mean, that's why we've been put here. If the community feels, though, that something requires a popular vote, I'm not against that. But I would just ask that as a community, we remain open-minded to conversations, right? Frankly, you know, and I think what's under this question, and I'll just say it out loud, I don't care what kind of pets any of you have, as long as it doesn't endanger anybody, and as long as it doesn't cause a nuisance in the community, right? We have guidelines around how many dogs you can have, how you can store your horse, you know, all sorts of things in the code, okay? And I think there's room in this community for a rational conversation about how people can keep whatever kind of pet they want.
Thank you. Mr. Mercer, same question.
From my involvement as far as attending meetings where this has been discussed, you could have a ballot item, and you could put it on the ballot, but unless there are a lot of people that are on another side of the fence, meaning for chickens, I don't think it would really matter. It looks like it would be voted down, meaning that they would not want to have chickens in the village. And so, yeah, I'm okay if they want to do that. The council could do that by writing that. Residents could do that, bring that forward and get that on. But I don't think it would change the outcome. I think that the ordinance, while maybe not the best ordinance, it's pretty clear, okay? So if you look at the United States Constitution, there's a lot of people interpreting that a lot of different ways. You can try to write your ordinances as perfectly as possible, but as times change, they will come out of date. Also, it just has to be interpreted. That's why you have a branch of government that does that. And that's everyone's responsibility to do that, or everybody's right to be able to do that. But I don't think that we're so far off on what we have in our ordinances and all the ordinances that they would all have to be rewritten. Should we look at them? Absolutely. But again, I think that the residents of this village have come out in droves and spoken on this issue. So if they want a ballot initiative, that's fine too.
Thank you, Mr. O'Gorman. Same question.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I have 2 minutes on chickens. I just want to point that out. So this is a wonderful place to live, because if our biggest issue is raising water rates year over year, and we haven't had a question about that, like why, who do I need to talk to, how do I pound and stomp my feet, because I'd like to, and I'd love our masses to get fired up about that. But instead, I'm answering a question about chickens, which I think is, you know, I understand the passion behind it. I understand that this is a long, drawn issue. I personally don't care. I think if people want chickens or don't want chickens, if it's done responsibly, I don't care. I don't want chickens in my yard. If it needs to be a ballot issue to put it to bed, let's make it a ballot issue. I really want it to be put to bed. I think there's the opportunity for an evaluation of this topic. It became big over the COVID period. I know a lot of our surrounding communities allow chickens. I look at it from that perspective, and I think of it as, if we are not offering that opportunity to residents, what type of residents do or don't we get? And I think that people who are open, warm, and accommodating to their neighbors are the type of people that I think this village deserves. And I think people who feel that way generally don't care what their neighbor does as long as it's not irritating them. I think there's several differences in the community. I know this is a big issue, and I know that people have spoken out against it, and therefore I think that it does need action. I would have liked for it to just have been decided and done. Has not happened yet. I think we're in the midst of that, and hopefully in a second term in office, I won't have to talk about chickens much anymore. So I'd like to focus on infrastructure and some other things that are important to the village. So again, I don't mean to put jest against it. I know some people take this very seriously, but to me, I think it's a wonderful place to live when we make the news for chickens. I think it just shows we don't have crime, we don't have crumbling infrastructure, we don't have health or quality issues of life. So I think that's a great optic on our village. So ballot issue, more power to anybody who wants to lead that initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Drummond?
Yeah, thank you. If putting it on the ballot will bring closure to the issue in the village and we can move on to other things, I'm all in favor of it. We recently had a council meeting where I believe we had authorized a little over $1 million in infrastructure spending at that meeting over 3 different items. No one had any questions about it. We got through those items in about 5 to 10 minutes. But we did spend about an hour plus on chickens that night, listening to the public. And while it's important that we do get the input of the public, I think on this issue, it is best time to move on and focus on other things in our community here. So the ballot solves that problem. I'm all in favor of it. If there's another way to do it, that someone has a creative idea, please send me an email, come out and reach out to me, and we'll try to look at those options too.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenman.
Thank you. So a ballot item on this issue may resolve it. I think the critical issue is that we've gotten to this place because there's enough room in the code that people can make different interpretations. And just as the public has the right to vote on this issue from a ballot standpoint and put it to bed, individuals have the right to explore what the judicial process will say about the law. That's happening. We'll all understand that. And if we want to come back to, what the village's opinion is overall and whether or not we should allow the chickens, let's put it on a ballot. Thank
you. Our next question will go to Mr. Mercer. And the question is, residents pay $540 annually to increase funding to maintain sewer and water pipes. What is the current balance of the fund? What are future projects the balance will be used for?
That's a great question. I'm glad it finally came up because in my time that I've put in my application to run and the people I've talked to, I've fielded a lot more questions on water rates than I have chickens. Now, maybe that's not what's been talked about in council chambers, but that is the truth. I'm not exactly sure of exactly on the fund balance. I know it's going up, and that's a good thing. There are a number of ways to pay, though, for infrastructure improvements. 2 main ways, right? You can levy millage, and you can levy taxes and pay that way. If you look at your water bill, currently you're paying $100 every quarter, and that's an infrastructure charge. That's really a tax. The other way is your debt service, which is a bond. And I'm in favor of also making sure that we are using future bonds as a way to pay for infrastructure. It's not necessarily always on us as the residents today to pay for the infrastructure for the future. So we need to balance that, and that would be my proposal, other than just levying a $100 tax every quarter.
Thank you. Mr.
Yeah, thank you, somebody listened, wrote the question. $540, what's it for? I don't know the current state of our fund balance. I know that it's in a healthy state now. Prior to that, we were in the tens of thousands, which is a high risk for a community our size. If we were to have a major water catastrophe, there's not much we could do about it. The water fund's what's called an enterprise fund. We have to self-fund that. We're not supposed to be, having a deficit in there like you can in other accounts and moving money around. That's supposed to be self-funded. So you get the money from the community, we pay it to Detroit Water, covers our sewer and our expenses, and that's how that works. So we were in a risky spot with that fund. So we had to increase the rates. We were borrowing, or not borrowing, but taking from the general funds. So we weren't spending on things like parks and public safety and other things where the general fund supports. And because of that, we're kind of compromising what we could do to our water resources. So now we're charging the appropriate amount. That fund is building, and as that fund builds, what will it do? It will address some of the infrastructure things I spoke about. So those are long-term issues, and the only way to do that is to invest, and that's what we're doing right now, and solving immediate problems with the fund balance that we have. It's pain, but it is something that we all generally have to take because it's our responsibility to manage that fund as a council to a zero balance from that perspective.
Thank you. Mr. Drummond?
Yep. Again, I fully agree with everything Mr. O'Gorman just mentioned here, and I think he explained the enterprise fund and how it works better than I could ever do it. I do know several years ago we were using our general fund to fund that short gap. So we took in X amount of dollars from the residents, and we had to pay the water commission Y amount of dollars, and we covered that with the general fund, which is not the right way to work those enterprise funds. The infrastructure charge is helping bring that up and creating a little bit of a rainy day fund. And with that, we have a list of other projects to work on, and we'll slowly be getting, not slowly, but we will be getting through those other projects as they've been identified, and using that money to stop a catastrophic failure of something. When you have a big collapse of a sewer main, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace it. If you line that ahead of time, it's tens of thousands of dollars to line it. So spending money on lining sewers and proactively extending their life for the next 30, 40, 50 years, as opposed to waiting for one to collapse, is a better use of everyone's money.
Thank you. Mr. Eisenman?
So I think the appropriate step was taken in applying water rates to our supply that cover the costs of the water itself and of preparing the infrastructure to support that long-term into the future. I think that doing that is also the most transparent way of funding those projects. So the cost of water delivered to your home includes the cost of maintaining the system that provides it. And that seems to me to be the most rational way to approach that. Now, it seems that none of us have committed to memory what the particular balance is as of today. But with the funds flowing in from the new water rates, even projects that have been voted on and approved by council in recent times have been funded out of that, not out of the general fund, and are possible to happen because of that.
Thank you, Ms. Keckskemeti.
I'm sorry to ask, Ms. Allen, but there was some detail in that question. Can you just repeat it?
I certainly can. The question is, residents pay $540 annually to increase funding to maintain sewer and water pipes. What is the current balance of the fund, and what are future projects the balance will be used for?
Okay. So it sounds like the question is sort of specifically about that infrastructure charge that Mr. Mercer was talking about. So these guys explained it right. You know, our water bill is made up of a couple pieces, right? It's there's a usage fee that is dependent on how many gallons of water you use in your house. There's a debt service, which covers, the big Evergreen Farmington Sewer project that we've taken on as a region. That was a multi-million-dollar project. It covers past sewer projects. And then there's this infrastructure charge. And the tricky thing about our water situation is that the first glass of water that comes to your house is the very most expensive, okay? It costs a lot of money to have a water system ready to provide clean and safe water. It's almost negligible after that how much you use. Okay, and we are at a particularly difficult situation. This phrase bedroom community sounds charming, right? But we don't have industrial users. We don't have shopping malls. We don't have industrial parks. We don't have a downtown subsidizing our water fund, right? And so it is going to have to be a mix of user charges and bonding, right? Because we are going to have to face some big infrastructure charges in our future. And I will say, we are not a likely candidate in this community for state revolving loan funds, just because of the way those things are prioritized against the needs of different communities.
Thank you. Our next question will go to you, Mr. O'Gorman. And the question is, how do you approach decisions to spend taxpayer money?
That's easy, it's mine.
Yes.
From that perspective,
question.
I'm putting money into the village like everybody else through property taxes and expenses. So I look at it as, if I'm spending money, would I be willing to spend that money myself? That's kind of the first basic decision. Second decision is, how does that improve the village and how does that compare to other things? We have invested in a planning tool. We don't have the outcome of that yet, but the planning tool is something that's going to give us an idea of all of our kind of infrastructure, whether it's sidewalks, roads, sewer, water, and it'll be able to help us prioritize that, including parks. So as we move forward, currently there wasn't really a plan, and we've been working on that for the last probably 2 years, which has been great. And when that plan comes to fruition, what we'll be able to do is prioritize, both prioritize how much things cost and what they get done, and then you'll also be able to measure severity. So if you look at the severity of the risk to the community, meaning if you don't repair it, because sometimes it's more affordable to repair than it is to wait for it to break and fix. So you might do some maintenance and repair over break and fix and vice versa. So prioritizing those on impact to the community against the costs that they weigh, but most importantly, what's important to the members who live here, the residents.
Thank you, Mr. Drummond.
Yeah, there's things that we have to spend money on that we don't have a choice on, right? And then there's things that we have a little bit of discretion on, and then there's some things that are 100% discretionary on. So the things that have to get funded, they have to get funded. And again, this is my mindset on how I sleep every night when I make these decisions. The things that we have some discretion on, we look at the information at hand, we make the best possible decision. And it's a decision that if someone approached me up on the sidewalk questioning how I voted on something, I would be able to explain to them why I voted the way I did. And then the ones that are discretionary, that 100% discretionary, there's few and far in between that come up in front of us on council on things that would be considered a frivolous expense or something that isn't needed in some regard. So on those, would I be willing to spend my own money out of my own pocket on something like that is what I'd ask myself, because, small portion of that as a taxpayer here is my money also. And I'd look at those to make that decision.
Thank you, Mr. Eisenman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I can't imagine that anyone would have a consensus to anything other than spending the public's money in the way that they would spend their own and being thoughtful in doing so. Some of the principles that you would use in making those determinations are, for me, if I'm spending my money, how does that affect my personal security? Does it affect my comfort in a rational way? And does it affect the long-term value of those things that are important to me? So as a homeowner, one of those critical features is the money being spent enhancing the value of my home? Does it protect my home's value? As we look to changing generations, new individuals moving into our community, younger individuals with different mindsets about what makes a community desirable, those are the kinds of things that have to be brought into the discussion of how monies are spent.
Thank you, Ms. Keckskemeti.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. I think often we hear this conversation of, well, it's just like your house. It's like you've got wants and you've got needs, right? And this is really simple. But I think Mr. Eisenman was alluding to this, right? As a community, we have to think about quality of life, right? And the things that we do in our community that bring quality of life to our residents, not just for fun, right? But for the value of your home, right? For the future of our community, right? And as a municipality, we have to do a lot of things at the same time, right? We have to buy fire trucks, we have to take care of our park, and we have to pay our police officers, and we have to pick up the garbage, and we have to take care of the pipes, and, at some point, it all sounds like a need, right? And so, the first question is, what's required? Do we have the money? If not, how are we going to get the money, right? And then, what value are these things going to bring to our community? So, I think we all take those decisions incredibly responsibly.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer.
Thank you. I don't think that anybody is in disagreement that every dollar that is spent by the council is important to make sure it's prioritized as going to the right item. However, nowhere else do you pay, and none of us like paying taxes, I wouldn't think. However, they're necessary evil for things such as police, fire, water, those items. And each of those items that you have at the local level, you know where each of those goes. You try to do that with your federal dollars, and I will question almost every time if you know exactly where all those are going. But you know almost where every dollar goes here. We don't have a lot of discretionary spending, but of the items that we either are going to spend because we have to or because we might want to, I will make a pledge that each one of those is going to be like it's my own dollar going out to fund that.
Thank you. Mr. Drummond, what is your opinion of development of recent Village Park purchase as rebates to finances and locations? How does this tie in with the Beverly Park plan? What was the cost? How much will it cost to maintain?
Can you just repeat that one more time? Because I
Absolutely.
want to make sure I get all the points.
Absolutely. What is your opinion of development of recent Village Park purchase as rebates to finances and location? How does this tie in with the Beverly Park plan? What was the cost, and how much will it cost to maintain it?
Okay. So I believe if I'm answering this correctly, this is concerning playground equipment. Right? The first sentence just has me a little confused.
Okay,
on
let
it.
me just read it over again. What is your opinion of development of recent Village Park purchases as it relates to finances and location? How does this tie in with the Beverly Park plan? What was the cost? How much will it cost to maintain it? It was a B.
That one helps me much more. Thank you for the
Yeah,
clarification.
Rebates, because that's what it shows, but they said it's relates, so it makes more sense.
That does,
Thank
that
you.
does, that does.
Hopefully that
I was trying to
clarifies
think
it.
of the rebate. God, I wish we had a rebate for everything we bought. That would be
They do.
wonderful.
They just didn't tell me. Relates.
Yeah, so we have a very central feature here in our community, which is one of the things that sets our sense of community, and that's the park, right? We hold countless events at the park. We have Boy Scout meetings there every week. We have Cub Scout meetings throughout the year. The parade ends there. We have Halloween Hoot. It is a central focus of our community. It's a place where everyone gathers. We have the jazz on Sunday mornings. Everyone likes the park. There are costs associated with the park. There are costs associated with keeping it at the level it's at. We are putting in new playground equipment there. The playground equipment that is currently there is at the end of its useful life. If parts on that playground equipment start to break down, we will not be able to replace those parts. So we have new equipment coming in. We had a budget planned for it for going in. We've been able to pick up grants from the DNR to help offset that cost. And I think long-term, looking into more and more grants and more available funding outside of our taxpayer dollars to help that helps. And the 2050 plan is trying to identify those out proactively so we can plan and get our grant writing in and submit on those grants accordingly.
Thank you so much, Mr. Drummond. Mr. Eisenman?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Beverly Park is certainly one of the jewels that makes this community what it is. And I guess to my notice, the playground is probably the most used segment of the park. It is a critical piece of the park's infrastructure and draws so much attention and so much activity. Given its age and the need, it's clear that the appropriate path is to replace it. I think that the funding mechanisms that were used to do that by identifying grant monies that were available to minimize the cost to our own residents was a terrific idea. And certainly Grant funding is a critical area that we can use, whether it's components of the 2050 vision for the park or other projects in the village to help leverage your dollars.
Thank you, Ms. Keckskemeti.
Sure. So I think I understand the question. I'm going to answer it as it relates to Beverly Park and the playground. So first of all, so we're all on the same level here. We have a dedicated park millage, right? A 10-year millage that generates, based on our housing values, about $200,000 a year. So over the 10-year period, we expect, this to generate about $2 million. In an ideal world, would we have had that Vision 2050 plan before we had a millage? Maybe, but I think that our council at the time and our Parks Board put together a reasonable list of things that they knew that needed doing. Number one on the list was the replacement of the playground, right? And they came up with what they thought was a reasonable amount of money that we needed. And they said, okay, we're going to go out for this millage. We're going to generate this money to do these things that need doing. Specifically on the playground, we got ourselves in a situation where we applied for a grant. We were denied the grant. We entered the contract to go ahead with the playground, and then the DNR came back and said, just kidding, we've got more money, we're going to give you the grant. And so it has delayed the project while we figure that out, because of course, taking money from the government is not as easy as it sounds, okay? There are some hoops to jump through. I know we said we would demolish the playground after the hoot last year, and we'd have a brand new playground by the spring, but the wait will be worth it if we get a $500,000 coupon.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer.
So we really don't know what the cost is. From everything that I've seen and heard and been part of and listened to, we don't know that. And that might just be where we're at right now. However, what I do know is we have playground equipment, it sounds like somewhere local, that is not being utilized that we paid for. I think that's wrong. I think we owe it to the residents to make sure that we come clear with exactly what has happened. I hear there's an elusive memo out there from the interim village manager that explains a lot of this. I have not seen it. I've asked for it. I'm hoping I will get that. All fairness, I only asked for it today. But I didn't see it on Friday out on the website or on the email that I get. Hopefully it'll be with the council minutes and the council packet that comes out on Friday for the next council meeting, because I think we owe it to all the residents to have that clarified, because that's been a huge discussion point at council recently.
Thank you, Mr. O'Gorman.
Thank you for the question, and I'll take advantage of people before me filling in some gaps, kind of feed this out to the community so you can spread the word. What's my opinion? Yes, we needed to replace the equipment at the park. One, it was outdated. It was recognized as not being repairable. And two, I think our playground equipment is uncompetitive if you look at other communities. As far as if I want to move into a community, this will look more attractive. Are we behind? Yes, we're behind as far as installation. Some of that goes to what Ms. Keckskemeti outlined. We are aware of all the moving parts on council. It's one of the reasons you elect folks like ourselves to sit here and have to deal with all these complexities and challenges. Not something that's enjoyable, but it is something that we deal with. So yes, there was a grant, a purchase, and then an achieved grant. The first grant was not achieved. And now we're in a situation where the DNR has rules about how you get that money. So we know where the equipment is. We know how much the equipment costs. And the question is, can we use the grant money to fund the equipment that we've already purchased effectively or entered into contract with? Generally, the DNR is a reasonable organization, and I don't think they're going to stick us with a bill saying, hey, you already entered into a contract, now you got to pay that off, and you have to go do something else with our money. So inevitably, I think everybody who doesn't want this to be a problem probably won't be. But again, there's some complexities because we are a government entity and we're dealing with other government entities. So hopefully that helps. And again, I would encourage, I'm out of time, I'm sorry, but just as a soundbite, I would encourage anybody to call your council members if you do have clarity or questions that you need. The administration is also usually responsive, but I'm happy to fulfill any questions that somebody might have. Thank you.
Thank you. And due to time, we're going to do just one more question, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Eisenman. And the question is, village roads on HRC Pacer reports number 2018 and 2023 show significant deterioration. How will you stop the decline, rebuild, and/or repair roads?
sense. So I think there are a number of issues surrounding roads. The most important of those is to leverage funding from as many sources outside the village as is possible. The roads within the village that are specific to the village and our responsibility, but some of the perhaps more difficult issues, such as 13 Mile, are county roads where our picking up that entire bill doesn't make any sense. So working in conjunction with the county, trying to access state and federal funding for those programs so that we can get new roads in a cost-efficient manner, I think is an appropriate way for us to play.
All right, thank you, Ms. Keckskemeti.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, roads are the infrastructure we see every day, but don't forget about the sewers that are underneath them, guys. I mean, that is really important too. So there's a couple of things. We received a grant from Oakland County, and part of that grant money we're using is to develop something called an infrastructure planning tool, because we do have a lot of different things to take care of, and it's good to put all of this in like a matrix, right? Like, okay, you're gonna dig up this section of road, here's what's happening with the water and sewer under it, so that you don't, go back 2 years later and redo the same road that you just did so that you can get to the sewer. So that planning tool should really help our village administration and council plan for future infrastructure projects. You also saw, we saw a lot of this on the east side this summer. There was something called a Cape Seal project, right? This is, we saw it, I think, went down Birmingham, it's on Kirkshire, it's in some of our other east-west streets. That is intended to prolong the road, right? So that we can stretch out how long it takes to, how long, we'll need to replace it. So we've got a great village engineer in place. My goal is to keep that person in that job and keep him doing the work of the village, and use that decision tool and use some maybe new technology, and like Bill alluded to, using some outside funds to leverage the work that we can do.
Thank you, Mr. Mercer.
So, we need a plan and we need to work the plan. I think we have some of that plan. It sounds like there are some plans in place. I would like to see the plan we have be executed. Cap and seal or chip and seal, it's nice. It didn't really go after our worst roads. You can't do that on your worst roads. So you have roads that are deteriorating way past that of Riverside, way past that of Birmingham or Bates, where they did this chip and seal. I'm not a huge fan of it, huge proponent. I'm not going to say it wasn't the right thing to do, but we have to go after the ones that are to the point where they're almost unsafe. And those are the ones we need to prioritize. And that's where we need to use our infrastructure dollars for.
Thank you, Mr. O'Gorman.
Yes, thank you. So if I haven't rung the bell on infrastructure enough tonight, I'll just do it one more time. There is no magic wand. What I'd like to say on the roads is to the tool that Ms. Keckskemeti referenced, we were able to get that at half price. That tool's underway. One of the things we've seen kind of in the past is Beverly Hills has had a very healthy budget, and with that, you've been able to maintain and be reactive, meaning you can flex money because you have it. Moving forward, we'd like to try to mitigate a lot of that and not tear up a road, turn around a few years later and do sewer water lines adjacent or underneath that road and then have to repave or rework the road. So this planning tool will hopefully start to coordinate all of our infrastructure investments together. I'm not going to say that it's going to be perfect. The PACER study does show the deterioration of our roads in the village, and there is a problem there, but that's not too indicative or different from the problem we have with sidewalks or sewers or some of the other things we're trying to correct. So again, a very obvious, visible problem, but you'll see probably every year we're either maintaining or managing to replace roads, and that will be ongoing as we can afford it and do it in a responsible manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drummond.
Yeah, the PACER report's a helpful tool. As mentioned here, we do have some other new tools that we authorized this year to also help supplement those PACER surveys. We have a governor currently sitting in place right now who basically ran on a campaign of fix the roads, right? They're a problem everywhere in the state. They're a problem here in the village. similar to some of the other things you heard here, some of the worst roads we actually have in the village have problems underneath them with the sewer and water lines that also need to be replaced. So I don't want to go back to beating the sewer and water problem, but we got to fix that sewer and water problem before we fix the road above it. Otherwise, we're going to rip up a brand-new road a couple of years later to fix a sewer line underneath it. This is known and being planned for now, and we're working on that as it comes out. I think once we kind of get the plan together and get it all around, we'll get that out to the village so the residents can see it.
Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to the candidates and thank you to the audience for your questions. And that concludes the time for questions. The candidates will now be given 1 minute to make a closing statement in reverse order of opening statements, starting with Mr. O'Gorman.
Again, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event. I think they're really important types of events to get messages out there and allow the community to hear direct from candidates, kind of in a round robin. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I am accessible as part of the council today. You can reach out to me if you have any questions. Again, I'm not perfect, but I do try to respond to emails, texts, and calls. As far as I'm concerned, I think the work we're doing on council today is moving in the right direction. We've had about over $3 million in grants, which is leveraging community members' money that much further. We have plans to put sidewalks in. Those are not plans in the way of on paper, but actually in the way of with engineers. We have revamped our pump station to help kind of some ongoing issues to prevent further sewer issues. And then obviously roads and water lines have been talked about a lot tonight. I do see a big opportunity to improve communication. That was one of my objectives last round when I ran, and I've not solved or cracked that nut yet. It's very difficult because people don't care unless it's a problem. And so working on that will be another initiative I'd try to take on in a second term. So I appreciate your time. And again, thanks for coming out on a weekday evening and listening to really enthusiastic, exciting topics.
Thank you. Mr. Mercer.
Thank you. I want to thank the residents for coming out tonight. I think it's important that the residents be informed of the candidates' positions and our position on these important topics that will impact the village. No matter how mundane or maybe dry they are very important, and I thank all the questions that you've given us. My top 3 goals, as I stated earlier, when I'm elected, is maintaining and improving the village infrastructure. That includes everything we talked about tonight: roads, bridges, sidewalks, water mains, sewer lines. Maintaining and improving our village park, Beverly Park, and our village green spaces, also the other parks within the village. I think that's very important to the residents of the village, places to gather. It's great. And being fiscally responsible is my final item. Prioritizing every spend item and competitively bidding all of those items that need to be bid. The other thing I would mention is that I hope that the council starts sooner than later hiring a new village manager. And I hope they do that and they go out to the Michigan Municipal League to do that. They are a great resource that finds some of the best candidates for a village manager. So with that, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Ms. Keckskemeti.
Yeah. Well, first, my thanks to Rosemerry. You are a gracious moderator, and so thank you very much. And thank you to the league for organizing this event. And most importantly, thanks to, a packed room in council chambers. This is wonderful. So thanks to all of you and those of you watching or that might watch the recording. I know it's difficult to get information sometimes about down ballot candidates, right? We're nonpartisan. We don't run TV ads. We don't have fancy websites. We're not doing a lot of door knocking, right? And so that you took the time and effort to attend tonight and engage with us and try to get information is really, really appreciated, right? I know that national politics gets all of the attention, right? But especially in a presidential election year. But, local government is where your quality of life is, right? And this is where, like Tim said, this is where you can see how your dollars are spent. So, we have a great community and 5 good people up here willing to serve on your council. And, I hope that tonight you heard some things that align with your vision for the community and your own personal values. And if you heard those things from me, I'd be happy to continue to serve on council.
Thank you. Mr. Eisenman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thanks to all of the residents, those that are here, and those that may be listening to us at a later date. Being a member of the community is a very important thing to me, and being able to give back to the community is a very special opportunity. I really, really believe that we have a special village to live in. Its character, built on its natural spaces, is very important to me, and it's one of the reasons that I spend a considerable amount of my time doing conservation work. As a homeowner, the value of my home, your home, all of our homes is important to me. And as we prepare for the changing demographics of who's going to own these homes as we move into the future, making sure that we've been financially responsible, that we have a sustainable infrastructure and the plans to maintain that. They're critical issues for me, and I want to support you on council by carrying that message.
Thank you, Mr. Drummond.
Yeah. Over the past 2 to 3 years, we've seen, a renewed focus here with the Beverly Green Park. There's going to be some upgrades over at the Riverside Park, and then also One Brook project too. A lot of that has been made available to us through grants, and I want to thank everyone here for being taxpayers, not only locally but at every other level. We need to keep going after those grants. For all too long in this community, we thought we weren't going to be eligible for any type of grant, and we didn't go after them enough. Over the past couple of years, we've gone very aggressively, and lo and behold, we've gotten a whole bunch of them. We want to see that continue here so we can continue to give the residents the best that they deserve, and also be mindful of their dollars. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know our next council meeting, we will see at least this or more, hopefully. And thank you very much for everyone in the league for putting this on. Thank you.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters would like to thank the audience, the candidates, and Bloomfield Community Television for making this forum possible. For further nonpartisan information on these candidates, visit vote411.org. When available, the video of this forum will be on the leagueofwomen.org website. The video is copyright LWV and must be used in its entirety. The League of Women Voters is funded by contributions from concerned businesses and citizens. Our membership is open to women and men over the age of 16. Remember, early voting begins October 26th through November 3rd. Or you can vote at your precinct on November 5th, that Tuesday. And always remember that democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.